Why are they supposed to be about? I don't know why that wouldn't be right here. I'm gonna get running apart. I was sitting on the street facing the wrong way.
How long have it been there?
Well, 4 weeks. It was into its 5th week. That's what we do extra time. It's like, she's being commented every day. So,
There, look at the actors.
City. You see who? See who?
Generations like that.
Yeah. Once she said that. So then it's going forward. That's some.
Who she is? She's online.
Oh, it's online. Okay.
Family problems today, and so she's joining us. She's not working, but she's doing it online.
Okay. I'm Scott.
Okay.
Okay, so Ty, it's a 4:30 right now, so call to order our study meeting here at West Valley City. And today is the Tuesday, September 13 and 2022 at 4:30 p.m. And we are in the multi-purpose room. And the anchor location here is the 3600 South Constitution Boulevard, West Valley City, Utah, 84119. Roll call, we have 4 council members are here, and 2 electronically is Scott Harmon and Jake Fidici Manu. Also, we have the admin is here with us, and Nico Kamat is on Zoom as well. We have approval of minutes, September 6, 2022. So we need a motion for that one, also the second.
Motion to approve September 6th study meeting.
Thank you. Have a motion.
Second.
Second from Don, first from Will. So all those in favor of this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The vote was unanimous. Number 4, review agenda for our regular meeting of September 13, 2022. Any concern, any question, any comment? Or we're gonna move forward. Regular meeting agenda, public hearing scheduled for September 2022. But here, before we turn time over to Steve Patrick, when you want to say anything before you go, like you're gonna take over the podium.
Only just real quick, sir. This is the second week review on that, so Steve is available for comment, and he does have a couple of other items on here anyway, but we don't have any new information for this one, unless the council has other questions or wants further discussion.
Okay. Any question for that? Item number A, item number B. Second week review from Steve Patrick. If no, I have one. I just want to make it clear for for the council understand is that I was finding very hard. I know you know that for the under 1 acre. So we have a multiple shopping center. I mean, the multiple units. Go ahead, Steve Patrick. Go ahead.
Oh, I thought maybe you had a question. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, comment. So I just let you know that I was finding very hard for that, and Redwood Road, 31 Roselle, 35 Roselle, 41 Roselle, 5600 West, major streets. But this case right here is on 35, on Redwood Road. And I just let you know very clear to the council, I have no involvement in this matter, on this matter. 2531 South Redwood Road. Actually, this one he can do by himself with the old version. Like Steve, the box, no multiple units. With the new version, it's the multiple units in, strip mall.
Correct. It's a single tenant, so there's no additional restrictions.
So I just let the council know that I have no involvement for that one. Any other than that, council have anything? Otherwise, we can move forward. One more question, Steve. You told us last time it's UDOT, they don't let the bank open the road on Redwood Road?
We don't know that for sure. So Redwood is a state facility. And because you do have the two side streets that would allow access, most likely UDOT will require the access to come off the side streets, but ultimately that'll be their decision. So we won't know that until they submit their site plan for review by UDOT. So that's when we'll know for sure whether they'll grant an access directly onto Redwood.
Really? I'm just concerned about it, but traffic in and out that two rows there, you know what I'm saying? Okay, that's that I have. Okay. If not, we're gonna move forward. Item number 6, public hearing schedule for September 27. That's gonna be Steve Patrick for this one too. You want to say anything, Wayne?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay, all right, Steve, take over.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So this item is an update to the city's general plan, but more specifically to update the city's moderate income housing plan. So a little bit of history. So earlier this year, the state legislature passed what was called House Bill 462. And as part of that bill, there were a number of changes to the requirements in state law for moderate income housing plans. And so in summary, this proposed change is to bring us into compliance with state code. So to give you an idea of some of those changes. So in the prior edition of state code, there were a list of strategies that cities could choose from that they had to select so many in order to implement and be in compliance with state law. So this change this year actually amended that list. So now there's new strategies that cities can choose from, as well as some of the previous ones were amended. So that was one of the significant changes. We're also now required to have an implementation plan. And then another significant change was that for cities that have what's called a fixed guideway transit system, we're now required to have a small area plan for each of those transit stations. Now, the state did give us until the end of 2025 to come into compliance with that requirement. So that's something we'll be working on the next few years. But all the other provisions are actually are required or compliance is required by October of this year. And so that's again really the point of this change is to update our plan so it reflects those new strategies and just making sure we're in compliance with state law. I've got the plan up here if there are specific questions, but I think I'll leave my review of that or this item unless there are specific questions.
Any question for him?
Can you tell us what page numbers have changed in this plan? Or, I mean, we've looked at this plan before, but it's new, right?
You bet. So there's a lot of changes, mainly because since we were doing an update to the plan, we updated all the numbers.
Right.
So all of the data about rents and home prices, all of that was updated. So there's all the tables, the figures were all updated. But then the portions that deal specifically with the strategies, that begins on page 12. And so I can scroll to that here and point those out. So what we did for that section, beginning at the bottom of page 12 here, is we list each of the strategies. And then for those that we have implemented or done something with, there's text below that explains how we've implemented that strategy. And then the ones that are in italics are ones that we're suggesting in the plan that the city would continue to do, or at least keep that regulation in place and into the future. So maybe to summarize the numbers, again, those changes are throughout the document. And then this is the most substantial change in that those are the strategies that the state updated. So our plan now reflects those updated strategies.
Any other questions for him?
Can you talk a little bit about, I forget the exact wording, but the plan around is it transit station? Are they talking about track stations? And I mean, what does that have to do with this?
Exactly. So what the state code requires that for any city that has, again, a fixed guideway transit system like light rail, or it could be the commuter rail stations, that cities have to have a what's called a small area plan for the area that's a half-mile radius around that station. So in state code, there's a lengthy list of things that the city has to do. So we have to reach out to stakeholders in the area, look at the possibility of allowing increased density. It's pretty detailed in terms of what the state's now requiring. And because there's quite a bit involved in that process, the state has given cities until the end of 2025 to come into compliance with that. There's one exception in that if someone were to make an application within that area and that application would have to meet certain criteria, the city would then have to actually have that plan adopted within 12 months of an application made in an area. So again, that's one caveat there, but hopefully that answer your question there, Councilman Fatismana.
It does, yes. I was just recalling our recent conversations around housing density and different allowances around, like for the track station right behind the Maverick Center and that thing. So this is just bringing that into compliance with new state changes. That's right.
Right, and as one example, our Fairborn Station vision, which is part of our general plan, really, in my view, meets that requirement. So it would we would have to have like specific plans for the other 3 track stations in the city.
Thank you. Any other question for him?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much for the explanation.
Thank you.
Great. Next item.
Thank you. So this next item, actually, at the request of the applicant, he has asked that this be moved to November. So once the Planning Commission had reviewed this application, I worked with our city recorder to get it scheduled for City Council. Once we had sent out the notice, the applicant notified us that he was going to be out of town, and so he's asked that this be bumped. And so I've talked with the city recorder, and it'll be re-noticed, and we'll work on. It would likely be in November when this will be placed back on the agenda.
Did he tell you why?
Just that he would be out of town.
Out of town. That's the only reason. Okay.
Correct.
Okay. Any other question for him? Not, we're gonna move forward. Communication. And I turn over to West Valley City Fire Department before we take over to West Valley City Fire Department. Wayne, you want to say anything before they take over?
Yeah, sure. Please, sir, just for a moment before Scott gets up. So Scott, Chief Evans, and all of our staff were identifying this need that we have in the community, in that we were making multiple calls to particular places, which it seemed like we were having to go back again and again for the same sort of reason, which didn't always necessarily need to involve us. So the chief and the staff came up with a pilot program that they wanted to try out and see if we could alleviate that issue a little bit. I won't spill the beans or steal any thunder, but that's basically the introduction to it. We've been doing this now for what's it been? It's got like 3 months, 4 months?
Since February.
Oh, longer. And I think we've seen some good successes with it. So with that, sir, I'd introduce Scott and let him take it away.
Okay, thank you, Scott.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. My name's Scott Hall. I'm the Battalion Chief for the Medical Division. Chief Evans asked me to do a presentation on what we call our Additional Resources Program. So like City Manager Pyle stated, we've recognized going on calls that sometimes we aren't the best resource. A lot of times we can give immediate care and help and transport to the hospital, but with a lot of these people, they need longer care, longer solutions that we just aren't able to provide. And so we looked at ways that we could help them. And ultimately, after looking at a bunch of different options and other things going on in the country to try to solve these same issues, what we determined is that we could just connect the dots that are already existing. So what we looked at is number one, how can we provide the needed services without increasing cost to the city and without increasing a lot of time in labor to our staff and our department. What resources are already out there? We don't want to start a program if there's already a program out there that can provide these resources. So no duplication of resources. Who should we partner with? Who can we partner with? How do we build these things into our existing operations to make them simple for our crews? And how do we close that loop of communication so that we get continual buy-in from our crews? So what we ended up doing is we actually got in contact with Solid County Adult and Aging Services. Their initial response to us after we presented this idea to them was, we can't believe that nobody's ever asked us to do this. This makes so much sense. So we met with them. And a lot of people know about this part of county health because of Meals on Wheels, which is one of the biggest things they do. But after meeting with them for a couple hours, we realized there's so much more. And I've listed just a few of them up here. But in this book here that they hand out, it's full of resources for the aging community in the county. So like I said, Meals on Wheels, a Budsman program. This is a program where they will actually go out and see if the care facilities, the facilities that are nursing homes or long-term care facilities are meeting the standard, or if they need to work with them to bring up that standard. One of the neat things that they provide is called Caregiver Support. So for those of you that have cared for aging parents or adults, it can take a lot out of you. So they actually have an entire program where they train caregivers on how to not get burned out. And they also provide breaks for them so that they don't get that burnout and they don't abandon their loved ones. Of course, they have home health services. They have services to help with people getting into long-term housing or just short-term care housing. They have Medicare counselors. The one thing they found is a lot of people in the aging community don't understand Medicare, so they're able to take advantage of these counselors. Fall risk reduction is a big one for them. And it's a big one for us. We go on a lot of falls every day. And so if we can just reduce that risk of a fall, that's less potential for injury of the citizen and then one less call that we're going to be pulled away from something else we could probably go to. They have another thing called Rides for Wellness. And what's really neat about Rides for Wellness is these are rides that they'll get to their doctor's office or to pick up a prescription. But what's unique with the county aging adult services is they have what they call door to door. So a lot of services out there in this country, they will only physically drive the vehicle. They will not assist the people from their home into the vehicle. So obvious as you can guess, a lot of people don't take advantage of it because they can't even get to the vehicle. So it's a small thing, but it makes such a big difference. And then they have many, many mental health resources and contacts. Those are just a few of the things I've listed to highlight. And like I said, there's a bunch more. So the way this works, we're trying to keep it as simple as possible. So what we built into our reporting system for our crews, and Eric, if I leave this PowerPoint, we'll still share on,
Yeah,
okay. So I'm just gonna pull up our, oops,
yeah, I think it's the other one's got the
sorry.
software. Keep going.
Oh, there it is. So this is just what our reporting system looks like when we go on any emergency medical call. And right here where it says patient referral for additional resources, all our crews have to do is they click yes. And then these two fields open up. This first one is a drop-down field, just some general things listed. So food, do they need food, housing, fall risk, isolation, hoarding, mental health, medications, transportation, as a PD issue, caregiver issue, whatever it may be, our crews can list as many of those as they want. The reason we put these in is because this allows us data to pull reports from later on. Then of course there's other. But another thing that we did is after the crews select what applies for that particular patient is they are required to write a separate narrative away from the EMS narrative. The reason we did this is number one, so we could get a little bit more better of understanding of what's going on so we could guide this to the right agency. And also this helps get a little bit of buy-in from our crews as to really putting a little bit of effort into making sure that they are painting a good picture of what these people need and what they could use. So that's it. That's all our crews do. And then every day a report is automatically ran. I'm gonna go back to this. Oh, it's automatically ran. I think I put these slides. No. So it's a report is ran, and then that comes to me, myself, and Captain Brandon Howard, who is also in the medical division with me. We take that report and we go to this portal, which was built with Salt Lake County. And we just put the same information from that report into this portal, and case number, the day was referred, patient information, those same boxes that were drop down menus, drop downs in the patient care report, we mark those. Do we know if they already are on services? The narrative, did we have to report to APS or PD? Should we delay reaching out to them? So like if they went to the hospital, we may need to delay their getting out to them. And then contact information. So then we submit that. And what happens from there is the county takes that information and they send it to whatever appropriate program that they run. And then from there, it's assigned to a caseworker. So we have another live document that unfortunately I can't share with you because it's got some protected information on, but I took a screenshot and I know this is hard to see. But this is a live document that's made based off of that information that we put into the portal, and then also is updated with the caseworker. So the things that we capture there are all those same things that were previously listed, but some things in addition, like what caseworker was assigned to it. When they went out and met with the person, what were the results? And they're able to write a narrative about what they were able to find out from the person, what kind of services they're able to put them on. And then there's a drop down of whether they've graduated from services or if they're getting started on certain services. And so this document is always being changed. And I can go back in and change it again if we go back on the same person. So it's just a way for us to communicate with the caseworkers on a real live basis.
This is a county caseworker.
County caseworker, yep. So what's been interesting with this is that we've had caseworkers come back and say, we already had this person as a client, but we had no idea that these other things were going on. And it's been really helpful for them to also get a better picture of what these people need. So that's kind of the meat of what we've done here with Salt Lake County Aging and Adult Services, and they've been great to work with. But we have other things that we've also built into this. So we do direct reporting to Adult Protective Services based on some of these responses, DCFS. Our police department, CIT, we partnered with them to let them know if we've got people that are having serious mental health crisis or ongoing crisis. And a lot of times, these are the same people that they already know about, so they can continue to build those cases to know how to help them. We've been out, myself and Chief Owensby, actually last week, we went out and met with one of our residents on a non-emergent visit, just to say, hey, this is what we're seeing. How can we help you better? And I feel like it was a productive meeting. So we'll continue to do that. And then a new thing that's kind of coming down the line that we actually just tested out a few days ago is Jordan Valley West Hospital has gotten a new program started called Beds to Meds. So it is specific to West Valley, its geographic area, where they can, when they discharge a patient that lives in West Valley City, they can set them up on this Beds to Med program, where when they leave with a prescription, the hospital isn't worrying about whether they fill that or not. They are setting them up on this program, who then brings their medications to them and makes sure that they understand how to take them. What Jordan Valley West recognized is sometimes when people leave the hospital, they just are confused. They've been through a traumatic episode, or they're not feeling well still. And so they're going back through this program to revisit with those people to make sure they got their prescription filled and make sure they understand how to take it. So going back to buy-in, what Captain Howard and I then do is after we go back to that live document and we see that that a caseworker's been assigned, we actually send an email back out to the responding crew and we say, hey, this is what the caseworker was able to find out. This is what they were able to do. And this is what the plan is moving forward. And then beyond that, we actually encourage continual reporting. So especially with APS and a lot of the aging adult services, everything's wait list based. So the more that our crews report and the more we push that information on, the higher up these people will move up those lists and the more serious it becomes to APS. So long story short, all we've done is we've tried to make a system to where our responders are the eyes and ears, connecting the dots of the programs that already exist. And it's been successful to this point. I think one instance where we're pretty proud of right now is that we had 2 crews report a patient that lives in the city, and she just voiced to our crews that she couldn't take care of herself anymore. She couldn't take care of her home. And it was about a couple weeks later, they were able to find a facility for this person to live where she could have her needs met and wouldn't have to take care of her home. So I'm pretty proud of that one. Yeah, any questions for me?
Not a question, but a round of applause. In my full-time job, I'm a program manager for the largest health system in the state in terms of social service, screening and referral. And what you folks have managed to do here and presented here, should it continue to work the way that it has successfully, is a big deal. Connecting folks with resources is not easy. Our system spends millions of dollars doing that. And if this is something that's local within the department and with partnership with the county that's working for the needs that you see and encounter every day, that's phenomenal. Yeah, this is a great model.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We tried to keep it a little bit quiet because we didn't want to let the cat out of the bag too early. We didn't want to overwhelm the county also.
Sure.
But we weren't able to keep it quiet for too long, and a few other agencies got word, and we actually presented to all the agencies in the Valley last month, and many of them want to come on board with this. So we're excited for it. So a few other things we're working on just to highlight is the aging adult services is 55 plus is where they could really help. So those people that we go on that need help that are younger than 55, a lot of times that's mental health issues, which we send to our CIT teams. But we also recognize that a lot of times that is due to the opioid epidemic. So just to highlight, I'm not sure how many in the council know, but we've started non-opioid based medications. So IV Tylenol and Ketorolac. We were the first agency in the state to do that. And now that has spread throughout not only county, but statewide. And then we're actually right now working on a new program with our medical director and the University of Utah, where we can actually get these people into a program called Bridge. I don't know if you're aware of that, right from the scene through MCOT. So more to come on that. Hopefully that one works out. So, yes.
Also, kudos, Jake and I are on the Healthy West Valley Coalition. And we met today. We have a grant to incorporate health into all of our policies and programs. And, as we met today, I couldn't come up with a whole lot of things that we were doing, and then this is here, and you're doing exactly what we're trying to do, trying to write it into all the policies.
You want a copy of my PowerPoint?
Uh,
Feel free to use it. No, thank you.
The next coalition.
But, I've got a whole list here of other things that I'm going to talk about that we came up with in the coalition meeting today. So
Yeah.
Kudos being out ahead of everybody else. So
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. Comments and not question. Yeah, it's how you, it's a great program you have there, by the way, but how you send your message out to senior people is what kind of ad, flyer, or what is that?
To the people, to the senior citizens, the aging community. Right now, it's just contacts when we respond to them, to their homes when they call 911.
when they call them,
They call them,
they report.
Yeah. So I guess there is other things that we do. So we have a bunch of copies of these books, and when we have community events, we also hand these out to those that come to those events. So that's another way that we do it. But a lot of times, honestly, people forget about these. So that's one thing that we recognize is a phone call goes a long way. And so when they're getting a phone call from a caseworker asking if they want these services instead of them having to call, it's been a really positive thing. So
Okay, good. Demand is very high here in our city.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The demand is very high here in our city. A lot of people calling.
I should have looked at that number. I apologize. We started this in February, and I think that our crews have referred probably close to 50 people. Yeah. So unfortunately, a lot of them don't want services. But that's okay, because just like the example I used of the one lady, that was worth it right there to get her somewhere where she felt safe to live. So.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll go to Justice Court report. You want to say something, Wayne?
No, other than just introduce Nicole coming up. She
Okay.
is in charge of the court, as you all know, and then
All
she
right.
also has with her our court administrator, Mr. Kevin Nudd, with her this evening.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Council. Nicole Cottle. And as Mr. Pyle mentioned, I'm the responsible party for justice courts, as the particular need requires that the court is not directly under the city attorney's office, but that it's administered in a separate department for the purpose of both indigent defense, adequate oversight of indigent defense, and then also of the courts. And it's also a rule of the state. So that's how I got into this. And yes, Kevin Nudd is here with us. We have had an interesting year for sure, and we'll talk about that. I wanted to just make sure everyone understood justice courts briefly, that the justice court jurisdiction is different than the other types of courts. When we started justice courts, we did that so that we could make sure that justice was being administered at our most local level. We were having some situations where we weren't seeing that happen at the district court level, and it gave us concern. So we have authority to deal with class B and C misdemeanors, violation of our ordinances, small claims, infractions, and other cases within that level of jurisdiction. We are the second largest justice court in the state, as you might imagine, by volume and otherwise. And we have 2 judges, which we'll talk about in a second. Or talk about right now. 1 court administrator, Kevin Nudd, who does an amazing job. And let me tell you, he's been through it in the last 2 years over COVID. If you can imagine all of the things that you're aware of that had to shift and change, justice courts was not the least of those. And the state requirements that come along with our justice courts, that things we don't control, that we have to constantly be reacting to. Kevin and his team have done an amazing job, and we're among the first to adopt the things that were coming down from the state and have the ability to adopt those things because of Kevin's good work prior to that unknown pandemic. So we have 2 judges, 1 court administrator, and 16 clerks. Our judges are Judge Gilmore and Judge McCullough. In fact, our Judge Gilmore was just awarded the Quality of Justice Award just maybe a week or 2 ago now. They do a fantastic job. If you haven't had the opportunity to see them in action, I'd encourage you to pick a day and go do that. Maybe in particular, a mental health court day, or otherwise we could get you to a good example of that. But they do a great job, and as do our clerks and Kevin. Our average caseload per judge is about 9,000. Our average load per clerk is about 1,000. As you might imagine, that's a hefty load, but not an unmanageable load. There are both constitutional and state requirements that for the purpose of administering justice and making sure that the constitutional rights are protected of both the defendant and the victim. We do have load limits that are recommended from the state. We're under those, and our justice court is seen across state widely as very well run and managed from that perspective. Okay, so this slide actually does need a little bit of explanation. So it's not for math, it's not in a totals column. Let me just talk through what these cases what these numbers represent, and I provide them to you just for a kind of general overview of what types of cases and how many. There's a lot of nuance in this slide, so if you have any questions, please stop me. But so when we talk about the traffic cases, and you can see the time frame here that we have listed. So total traffic cases filed, that number is not a total in the math sense. It's a total in the total after all these others. So those numbers together would not add up to the 16,000. Good examples, DUIs, impaired driving, driver's license violations. Those are all the types of violations you can get driver's license wise. So suspension, failure to have one, all those things. Other moving violations, the same. Those would be your, let's see, like we just barely talked about these examples. Speeding. Hit me with it. Yeah. Speeding and some of those. And then the non-moving violations would be things like your taillights broken out or your registration isn't accurate or current. Expired. Thank you. So those types of things, you can see a lot of traffic cases, and it's a heavy load. And we've seen an increase, a steep increase in those actions. Of course, as you might imagine as well, it's hard to ballpark each year what our caseloads will look like because we don't control the actions of the folks that we're working with. So sometimes speeding is really horrendous and sometimes it's a little better. So we have a long history and we've tracked that. So we kind of have the averages, but it's interesting to watch those trends and very telling to watch those trends. If you go over to the misdemeanor and infraction violations, you'll see the types that we do. One of the things I'll point out here is one of the big and important reasons that we started the Justice Court so many years ago is we were seeing a lot of our domestic violence cases languishing at the district court level. And languish can mean a lot of things, right? Sometimes it means they weren't being filed. Sometimes it means they were taking a long time. Sometimes it means they were turned down by the district attorney's office. And that still happens to us in many cases. The fact that you see this number of domestic violence cases is representative of an issue that we're dealing with right now, where many of these domestic violence cases are actually felony level cases. And we screen those with the district attorney's office. And if they're not accepted and prosecuted by the district attorney's office, they'll kick them back down to us. And we are the only jurisdiction to date that will file those in misdemeanor court. So we'll typically file a Class A misdemeanor domestic violence case against those offenders and take those through. So the fact that you see such a high number here is very telling of how serious we take that crime and how we've continually strive to try to deliver justice in that realm. That's actually a hot topic right now. You've probably seen some of that in the news, and the fact that we're the only jurisdiction that continues to prosecute those kicked back cases was something of a revelation to us, actually. We didn't know we were the only ones doing that. I don't know why other jurisdictions are making those choices, but that's something that we do and continue to do. And as you know, in concert with our great victim advocates office, they do a really good job with those victims and helping us prosecute those crimes. Some of the other misdemeanors, you see the big numbers there, the 1,000 under other misdemeanors. This is a list of some of those. We see all of these different types and more. I didn't list all of the types that exist, but those are some of those. And then small claims cases, and that's about 1,000 a year, give or take. We have a great prosecutor's office and a long-term prosecutor has been with us a long time, Ryan Robinson. He's been probably here at least 15 years, maybe longer, 20 years, yep. And widely known across state. In fact, he's the head of the prosecutors group this year and well known as an expert in his field. So lucky to have him. He keeps that process running pretty smoothly as well. We also, as you know, have to provide, we have the opportunity to provide indigent defense. And that is a significant lift for us as a city. We have a contract provider that does that for us with Larson & Larson across the way here. They've been a longtime provider of ours, and we continue to monitor actually monthly their provision of service. So we know how many indigent defendants are going through their office, how quickly they handle their cases, how many cases per attorney over there, so that we know that those cases are also not languishing on the other side. For the most part, we're a very heavy user of indigent defense services on the average. So it's another important thing that we need to make sure happens for the administration of justice. Some of the justice court performance measures are really interesting, and I won't belabor this, but they're set by the state. So this is an interesting sector of business for the city. We have some of our own metrics, obviously, and of course, Kevin sets all kinds of standards for his people on a daily basis. But I thought it was interesting to share with you a few of these measures that the state requires of justice courts and how they do that. So the requirements are on the left here in blue, and then what they want and how they assess. If I go into each of these, you would see how those are. So just to give a flavor, access and fairness to the court in the courts, effective use of jurors, interesting, probably not one necessarily we would have thought of. Clearance rates, which means how fast are you clearing out your cases? And you'll see that those are some of the same that we've adopted for our own performance measures in our budget book and for our annual and quarterly reporting, because we likewise felt that clearing of cases rather than allowing them to languish was, again, one of the core values of our court. Time to disposition, age of active pending cases, restitution, fines and fees, juvenile court report card to the community. That's not one that applies to us, but this public trust and confidence in the court. So the way that they gauge that is they do the state surveys. Let's see, I'm going to have to be smart and go back here. Eric might have to help me out. There we go. Okay. Thank you. So the state measures those, and grade is a strong word, but certainly get after us if we don't meet those goals. As I mentioned in our budget book, you can find the department action items that exist here. Of course, you see the COVID year, because all the things were out the window during the COVID year. We were doing online hearings and sometimes not online hearings, and some days we're on and some days we're off. And so the numbers are very skewed from those few months that they were trying to work that out. But as you can see, we meet or exceed both the state requirements and our own goals here. COVID, just a quick run through of some of those things. We were required to remain open and accessible to the public, which, as you might imagine, was a tricky endeavor, especially in those thick months. And Kevin and his folks did a great job. We couldn't hold in-person hearings until just this February. And then even then it was a little bit hot and cold. The state was on a different track and frame of mind than we were. So we just went with whatever they asked us to do. We made sure that it was happening. The interesting thing that has come out of COVID, you've heard us say this many times, we've learned a lot, and there are many things that we can do now still remotely that have benefit both the judge and the court system, but also the people that are using that system, make it easier for them. We also have an interesting juror selection process that makes it easier for the potential jurors. Takes less of their time during the day, but provides a process by which there's a more effective and efficient way to do that. So it's really been good as well from that perspective. Couple of things to be aware of. There is a lot of discussion this year at the state legislature regarding justice courts and whether or not we should go back to the 20-year-old circuit/district court formation of justice court system. For us, obviously, that's a really important conversation to be engaged in. We've been engaged in that both legislatively and all summer long. And it means a lot to us to not go back to that system because we really do see that the diffusion of the administration of justice happens when you have this very heavy caseload that you have to push through a system that is more centralized. So we're hoping to have those conversations. Part of that, of course, as you know, is there's a dynamic where the judges are our judges. We pay the judges, but we don't really control the judges from an HR or otherwise perspective. Similar movement about that type of thing is coming on. And you heard me say that the state does have a lot of requirements and rules that we have to comply with. So I think if there's legislation, it will probably look more like that this year rather than some major overhaul, simply because the cost of going back to a circuit court scenario is horrendous. The fiscal note on that kind of a bill, I think they're not quite ready for what that staggering number is going to be. But as those numbers start to come in, I think if we see any tweaks this year, they'll be around the edges. And I already addressed the felony versus misdemeanor and why it matters to us, and in the domestic violence cases in particular, but in others as well. And with that, I can answer any questions. Kind of a quick and dirty justice court.
Any question for Nicole Cottle?
Do we receive state or federal funding to operate?
For the justice court, no. We do sometimes have a few dollars that flow into things like, if you count victim advocates as part of that, which it's not really, or once in a while we have some dollars, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but they're not federal, that come into our mental health court in small amounts. Once in a while, we'll get some funds that are to help with that.
What about COVID, ARPA funds or anything to help with that transition?
Outside of our normal state funds, I don't think so, Kevin. Did we get any other court-specific ARPA funds? I don't think so.
There were some COVID funds that we were able to buy computers to replace old ones and computer equipment. And the supplies for like cleaning and disinfecting.
Yeah, those were the early city funds. Mm-hmm. Yeah, not court specific. Yep.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Nicole. As you know, Madness City is adjacent to us in the west side, so we the one that very much closest to Madness City. Are we helping them out
with their cases?
Yeah.
So that depends. That we do cases for lots of other people is a strong word. Like for instance, the highway patrol, right? When the highway patrol writes a ticket in our jurisdiction, those cases come through our court. So as it relates to a case in Magna, we wouldn't see those here. Those would go to the county. There might be one or two situations where it involves some sort of a West Valley connection that they may come through our court, but most of those cases are going to be handled at the county level.
I see.
Yeah, I can't think of very many exceptions. But otherwise, we do some jurisdictions, like Highway Patrol is a great example. We process their citations that occur in our area.
Yeah, so very small a number we have been.
Reasonably small. Mm-hmm.
Very small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just curious about that. New building, so we're gonna move in here soon, or we just keep it how?
I'll take that one just from the construction update standpoint. So it's on track. Definitely will be within the contract, which allows us to foresee occupying the building by the spring of next year. We're hoping we'll be done before that. We have had some of the normal supply chain contractor type issues, but so far we're on track to be open.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
It's a great question, Mayor, too. And I'll also add, interestingly, the state also makes particular requirements of us with regards to the construction, in particular of the courtrooms themselves, and also some of the security measures over there. So it's a partnership with the state from a what needs to be there perspective.
I see. Got it. Thank you. Any other question for her? None?
Just another comment, if I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
And this is really just to emphasize what Nicole already said, just to make sure we kind of go over it importance wise again. Back when the council made the policy decision to go to the Justice Court, which is all the way back to like 2000 now, something like that. There were really specific policy reasons why the council wanted to do that, which Nicole mentioned in terms of concentration and focus on particular types of case, domestic violence, DUIs, that sort of thing. We just weren't able to get because, like Nicole mentioned, the system was so diffused and diffused from a focus standpoint, but centralized in the administration standpoint. So even though this is by no means any kind of a moneymaker for us, really, we were willing to bear that cost because we wanted to have that effect on those particular areas. And those same policy initiatives and concerns and reasons are the reason why we still advocate doing that today. And there is some question as the judges, the legislature, as legislative and legal thought goes back and forth on where's the proper place to administer these sorts of cases and case work go, that, you know, we could potentially face a situation where we either have to fight harder or give up the battle, or it's just taken away from us. But it's been thus far a battle that's worth it. It has helped us from helping our residents and citizens in so many different ways from a justice system standpoint. And so it's been a very important function for us. We don't have to do this. We didn't used to do it. We didn't have to take it over back then when we did it, but it has proven to be a valuable service for us to undertake.
Well, I can't keep pace with the fire department's awesome presentation today. And yeah, round of applause. I wanted to cheer. One of the things that is truly remarkable about the Justice Court that I will just mention again is the mental health court. So the mental health court, we were the first in the state to do that, much like many things. And if you go and sit in a mental health court session, you would see why, to Wayne's point, this is such an important thing for us to be able to do, and how it is impactful on people's lives and would not work at the centralized level. It just would be untenable for them to provide that. So something for you as a council to be very proud of, and also it represents significant impact on people in our city and really a remarkable project. So
Great. So we continue to have that in the future. Okay.
Yes.
yes, sir.
Like good. Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Council calendar. Any question? Any particular day, time, event? None. And then we can move to new business. First is the potential future agenda items. Anyone has anything? Bring it up in this meeting or future.
I've got one that typically these, I would just send an email, you know, kind of localized, but for some reason or another, this past week I had 4 come in, and it's about street sales. And I'm unclear around what that is. So I don't know if my colleagues on the council would appreciate maybe a communication about that. And I'm talking about folks selling, you know, flowers over there by Smith's on, you know, 48 West, 41st South, or 4000 West, sorry. And then another one on the corner of 47 South, 48th West, where there's just a free for all yard sale like every Sunday. And I know there's a couple of those because I had 2 emails. And so between yard sales and street sales, you know, what the
On my
actual
way over
laws
here,
are.
there was somebody on 41st, 40th in a uniform, looked almost like a Salvation Army uniform, with his hat out and a sign collecting donations. The cars stopped there.
What was it?
All I was gonna say is, yes, internally, this has been a topic for us over the last few months.
Sure.
Everything from the dude in uniform, who I think I've seen before, and he kind of pops up from now and then,
Yeah,
to the flower selling thing, which seems to be more of a recent upswing. I saw 2 of those today, by the way, by myself. Yard sales is kind of a continual one. The fruit stands on the weekend is kind of a continual one, but it seems like there's more this year. So this has been a matter of internal focus over the last few months. And yeah, we'd be glad if the council wants to hear a presentation or a communication item just on what's been going on with that. What we think the causes are, where it's different, where it's the same as it has been, and how we kind of struggle with that, frankly. But
what's the
yeah.
difference between that and the guy with the sign that we've already legislated about?
Right.
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I'm happy to get an email with references to the code and look at it
Yeah.
myself, but just to be able to discuss some of the
Yeah,
nuances.
for sure. We can do it either way, whatever the council would prefer. And short answer to that question, there's really not much of a difference. If you're exchanging services in the street on our high volume traffic streets where that ordinance addresses, there is no difference. We're just not supposed to be doing that. There's no business license that allows it. Right, yeah, there's none of that.
So for me personally, I mean, an email with references to the code, just so I can tell my neighbors what I know, because right now I'm not clear, works for me. But if anyone would like a discussion about it, I'm okay with that going on an agenda too.
Yeah, either way, it'd be fine with us.
Council,
I'd like to, as an agenda item.
I think
okay, so it's
a more in-depth discussion would.
Sure, okay.
so we have enough.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, good. Great. Anything else? Go ahead. Don.
One other thing, and I think we're working on it, but we talked a while back about the health and, policy, and I think communications is working on a resolution to bring to the council, right, that would adopt that. So
And sorry, I missed the beginning, the which policy?
health,
Health?
all policies,
Health and what?
all policies.
Health and all.
In other words, why do we buy a bigger truck for our 4 passenger crew that's going out to fight these wildfires?
Uh-huh.
Their health and well-being.
Oh, yes, okay.
One of those reasons, because, we don't want them to get there and not be able to unfold out of the truck.
Oh, right, yeah, okay. Right, yes, I do remember that discussion.
But I think communication is working on it. I don't see Sam here, but.
Okay.
They mentioned that in the meeting today that they were working on it.
Yeah,
'Cause I knew we'd discussed it.
yes, I remember that discussion too. Yeah, I'll get with you after. I'll let you know for sure which item that is.
Yeah, but it might be a future agenda.
Yeah, we probably already have it.
Wayne, if you have a second sometime next week, or maybe no hurry, what I'm saying, can you send an out email about the homeless, the location, what the process they're doing over there? Yeah, I mean.
Oh, on the,
Yeah.
the shelter? Like
Yeah,
temporary shelter for
Yeah.
the winter? Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Just send out and see, yeah,
Mhm.
that's all I have. Okay, council report. Yeah, Don.
Couple of things. I was at a couple of meetings this week, South Salt Lake Valley Mosquito Abatement District. We did have one human case of West Nile virus. It was in West Jordan. So it's not in our city, but it was in the mosquito abatement district. But that's all we've had. And I think they found one pool of mosquitoes that had some West Nile in West Valley, but it didn't go anywhere. It's just, they come and they go type of things. And nothing came of it. But they did mention that they do an education program usually during the winter. But they're also willing to come out during the summer and that, just have a booth, inform people about mosquitoes. If you've got a pond, we can get mosquito fish in there, or other things that will help control the mosquitoes. And I thought, sounds exactly like what we had at many of our hump day buffets that just ended.
Right, yeah, exactly.
So I mentioned it to Dan McBride, who's assistant director out there, and he said, yeah, would be happy to come out. So
Yeah,
we might want to have Parks and Rec kind of put them on their invite list for next year,
okay,
which would just get the information out a little better. And I know they're reporting next week
right.
with Magna mosquito abatement. Between the two of them, they could probably put on a pretty good presentation at one of those booths during hump days.
Yeah, absolutely.
So also, as I said, we met with the Healthy West Valley. Some of the things that they talked about, which fire department's already jumped a lot of the thunder, which we appreciate. But in some of our housing policies and that, in our affordable housing and that grants, could we put a healthy aspect in there? Is there a health component that could go into those policies just in general, or when we're redoing the master plan? Could we put some health things into that? And we may have quite a few in there already. And just some of those things like that. Few things that are happening tonight. We can't get to it, but Hunter Library is hosting a QPR training starting at 6 o'clock, 6 to 8. QPR is a suicide prevention training. Question. Persuade and respond and refer. Refer. You have to persuade, but that trains people, us novices, that if we see something or hear something, some of the things that we could do to maybe help that person without necessarily referring them, but if we need to, we can know how to refer them. And then they're also going to be doing a youth entrepreneurial training later in the year through the Hunter Library. Just help teenagers learn how to do some of the things that they need to do as adults. They also reminded us that COVID boosters are now out. They're the new boosters that affect all of the different variants and all of the different subvariants. Encourage us all not to forget about them. So that was Healthy West Valley.
Great.
And I saw we still had the COVID testing station out there in the park.
Still do. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Don.
Thank you.
Okay, appreciate that. Anybody else? No. I went to a national night out last Saturday, and thank you for the fire department there. And it's great. Kids love it. Jump in and out and check stuff in the truck. It's awesome. It's great. Glad to be there and to hear stuff from them. We don't have any closed session tonight, right? No. Okay, so last motion. Motion
To adjourn.
Okay. Okay, all this, those favors in this motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so we adjourn. Okay, thank you.